Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Broke Girl Society podcast. We are rolling on into episode 4 with Kitty Martz, and we're calling this the Kitty Chronicles because she's absolutely lovely. Kitty Martz is a woman in long-term recovery. She's a peer support. She's the executive director of the Voices of Problem Gambling and Recovery, and she is absolutely lovely. And I wish you guys, each and every one of you guys, could get to meet her because she's such positive light. So going into this episode, we titled it, or she titled it because she's better at titles than I am. Advice that we would give ourselves if we would listen. How many times do you wish you could go back and tell yourself a piece of advice that you would have listened to? As I wish I wouldn't have gone into the casino. I wish somebody would have told me, hey, be careful with this. This could be a problem. Or maybe somebody wishes that somebody told them not to download the apps, because it would be a problem. But I really think back on the one piece of advice I wish that I had told myself early on. The thing I would have told myself is to work on being happy within. I know it sounds cliche, or maybe it doesn't make sense to you, but to me, I feel like that was the missing piece in me, is that I was always looking for happiness through somebody else, or from somebody else, or from something like gambling, or shopping, or, you know, I feel like I was always looking for happiness from the wrong places. And now in recovery, I know how important it is to just find happiness within, figure out what's going to bring joy to my life. And I know that that's the biggest part of just staying on the right track, and finding finding a purpose again. And that all has to start with me, and how I feel it can't be given to me by anybody else. So yeah, that's the advice I'd give to myself, if it makes any sense at all. But to me, it kind of does. So hi, Kitty. Welcome back to the Kitty Chronicles. What are we talking about today?
Hi, Christina. Thanks for having me back. I want to talk about things that I would like to tell myself if I thought I would listen, like advice I would give.
Okay.
And the caveat there is if I thought I would listen. You know what I mean by that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely do.
Yeah. So that's okay. We're not judging ourselves. It's just maybe if there's a tiny nugget of things I hear myself say now, that can be a reminder going forward. What we really want to do is, when we recognize that there's something that would probably bless our lives to get squared away, to get right on it and start working at moving towards making that happen, versus maybe I don't know what, quit smoking in 10 years. I got the gambling thing to deal with now. Maybe I'll quit smoking in 10 years. Or we could also move towards quitting smoking now. So it's not this big like finger waggy thing of you need to do this, this, and this for your life. By the way, I'm just here representing myself as a woman in long-term recovery from gambling disorder. I am the executive director of a nonprofit in Oregon called Voices of Problem Gambling Recovery. If folks want to get a hold of me, they can reach me through VPGR on our website, vpgr.net. But this is just you and me kind of throwing the ball around. All right.
All right.
Okay. All right. Here's my first shortcut to feeling good again, women in recovery. Ready?
Ready.
Forgive yourself. This is number one.
Yes.
How's that going?
I'm doing okay with it. I can say this. I think somebody asked me this question a couple months ago, and I was still struggling with forgiving myself. But today, I forgive myself because I know how important it is to move forward.
Yeah. I challenge folks to picture their gambling as this kind of goblin that lives in a cage, hopefully, that we have nice thick chain wrapped around and cartoonishly oversized locks. And mine has a bratty child actor voice. I try to listen and right, like from those 80s Hallmark specials, just really bad acting that you go, oh, please stop talking. I don't want to hear that tone. That's my gambling voice. And so when I hear that shamey talk of you not just caused harm, but you're a mess and horrible things, I try to have it be in that voice, like, oh, I know who you are. You're the gambling. You're trying to keep me down. That's its job. I have to correct that to, hey, I had a neurological disorder that the reward center in my brain got wired weird, and I got chemically hijacked, and I'm doing everything I can think of to work on fixing that now. And I forgive myself, and I gotta like literally say that to make it better, you know?
We can just go ahead and tell everybody listening that you
Uh-huh.
have a beautiful bulldog, and we can hear snoring because we picked it up in one of the previous episodes, but I love it. No, I love that animals are part of it. Like you should, yeah, usually when my cats are in here, it's chaos. But
Right?
So I just want to say that in case anybody was wondering.
Oh, bless his heart. He brings me great joy, but he's a loud one. Yeah. Okay. So secondly, and we're gonna do a whole nother episode on this because it's just so important, is correcting my irrational or unhelpful thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any of those?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have a ton of them. Let me see. Let me think of one. I actually made a list the other day when we were talking about this.
Yeah.
One of my most irrational thoughts is, and this is a big one, is that I'm not worthy of the good that comes in my life because of all the bad that I've done. And that's a big one to talk about because I see a lot of people, myself included, when things start happening, I get this irrational thought that I don't deserve it, and I will self-destruct. I will try and self-sabotage it.
Yeah. It's almost like good things happening to us can be unfamiliar, and that's unpleasant. And when you read these things about gambling that are like gamble to escape negative feelings, it's like, oh no, we also gamble
to escape good ones. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's so nice to hear people normalize talking about that or even being celebrated, or you're getting a lot of praise for doing this podcast. People are saying there is a niche in the market that this is needed, of your voice and your energy and women based and just what you're doing here. And how do you react to that when you hear that kind of praise?
Oh my goodness, I shudder in.
Right.
Like I feel like and I'm going to be honest, I do hear a lot of that. And I think people probably, and I think you've said this too, like I will usually move past it as quickly as I can because I'm starting to get to a place where it's not that I don't feel like I deserve it, because I'm working my ass off and I want to help others. And I know, so I'm starting to kind of find that balance of it's okay if somebody says thank you for helping me. But at the same time, it still just does not feel like I deserve it. So that's something I am struggling with.
Yeah. I wonder if we just are so programmed to have negative messages on a loop in our head, that I'm not worthy and I'm broken and I'm unlovable and I always fail, that we have to counter correct in a way that we actually do, like hype scripts or something. Like maybe I'll write it down for you on, make it your screensaver on your phone or something, that an alarm goes off and 30 times a day you'll hear ting ting, and you look at your phone, and then you'll have to say, I'm helping this community, I'm being brave, I'm working hard, I have something to contribute, I'm magical. What would it hurt if we just started reprogramming pathways to say things like that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and that's that is what's helping me, is just recognizing that it's okay for me to help others while I'm helping myself. And what I have to say is valuable to some, and maybe not so much to someone else. And that's okay. But
Mhm.
I just, when I do have those negative thoughts, I just try so hard to push past them, because I think by pushing past them, if I got stuck in them, then there wouldn't be a podcast. There wouldn't be another episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that hangs me up worse. So,
You know why? Because this podcast is really unique and probably uh, capturing your essence. When you hear an episode come out and listen to it and how much you cover with your guests, do you ever feel that kind of zing of just sort of bliss?
I don't know if it's bliss, but it's definitely, I feel this sense of just rightness. You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like this sense of like, so this is why I had to experience what I experienced, so
mm,
that I could have an understanding of this, so that I could have this conversation with somebody and have this enormous sense of compassion and empathy that I wouldn't have had I not experienced the trauma and of addiction. And I think it becomes to this moment where I'm just like, I turn this moment of I'm not worthy into I'm grateful
yeah.
for this experience.
Yeah. And I think some of us go from I'm grateful to I'm part of this universal consciousness web of connectivity, and I want to be part of helping other folks not suffer in the same way I did if I can, and that'll give my life meaning. So that's why I think I do stuff I do for advocacy and outreach and helping people with gambling disorders, is because it's now part of my essence to try to
Yeah.
minimize that suffering. Yeah.
And
And
it's part of my recovery. It's part of the service work to help others. And by helping others, it just, I don't know, it helps me. So
yeah.
yeah.
And as we get better at it we get more skill. We get more ideas that we can kind of draw from the creative well of folks in gambling recovery. I mean, I probably don't have a unique idea in my brain. It's just stuff I'm repeating that I've heard other people say, and maybe switch it around a little and found how it worked in my own life. But by building this kind of handbook on ways we can live our lives in recovery, and then also having more challenges going out there by taking on podcasts or doing advocacy work or being in a nonprofit or something, you get that flow where the skill and the challenge interact. And that's where it gets really fun. And that's where I feel essence happening. So I don't know, it may surprise folks when they start looking at what they really enjoy. But have you ever seen those Marie Kondo shows where she
Mm-hmm.
holds up an old T-shirt or something,
Oh
and then she's
yeah.
yeah she
It's like
describes
bliss. Talk about bliss.
bliss, right? She goes, that little she says, it's so sweet. And like the podcast to me is like, there's a lift there, or animals, or things in our lives. It may surprise you. I yesterday morning I was really wanting to have my one day off and to sleep in, and as it turned out, I ended up doing some data management work with a statistician that's part of my agency, just looking at how we gather data of the efficacy of folks that we work with in our peer program. And I found myself getting really into it. Like, who is this that's doing their Excel spreadsheet at sunrise on a Saturday, and really looking forward to the gratitude of being able to talk with a professional that knows how to do this kind of thing. And I'm like, bring it. I welcome it, of figuring out what my next defining kind of joy essence is going to be. I also, to do that, need to do what they talk about in 12-step programs, where you stop fighting everyone and everything. And because that's such an energy sink.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it can be, oh, I don't know, my car got towed recently out of the spot that I pay for to rent. And And it's easy to go to this like, I'll get you, and raising my fist to the sky. And it's like, well, I got my car back and I didn't end up having to pay for it. And really, like, can we just crack on from
Yeah.
that? How much energy do I want to chase that with? So I do try to pick fewer battles, and then look at the battles I'm picking and put a couple more of those back. I have learned the last few years, I was given the advice from a supervisor to ask myself when I start leading that self-righteous charge in my mind, of like, is this the hill I want to die on?
Mm.
Just ask yourself, do you want to make a big deal about that, or do you want to go focus on what matters? So I do want to keep trying to move towards what is it maybe your values? Do people know what their values are?
That's a good question. I think a lot of times we take on the values of maybe our parents or the people that are in the ways that we grew up. So, those change as we get older. I think it's important maybe to take a step back and kind of really assess what those values are. And I think that's an important step in recovery, is just identifying with what you truly believe in and what you truly think about situations and things. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not the just Norman Rockwell painting of my parents' values that I thought it would be. I'm finding mine are quite different than that. Like humor is one of them, and that there's this kind of, I don't know what to call it, but when I look at my careers, many of them have involved helping people and being able to be in a close orbit to others. If that was in human resources, where I could be part of giving someone a job offer, really high point in their careers, their lives, or ending their careers if there needed to be a termination of their employment, and doing peer support work, you get really an inside look into very private details of what's happening in people's lives. And I find that that's very important to me, part of my values, to be trusted with that and to be able to be grounded and present for that. I was asking folks close to me lately of what they see as my essence when they see me have that Marie Kondo t-shirt moment of like, woo. And in fact, my partner and I were just kind of walking around town, and I was thinking, well, it's like cold out and maybe I can do something to help folks. There's a lot of people sleeping outdoors here in Portland with some hand warmers and just comfort items and snack and things. And so we were talking about it then. He goes, well, I think you like to help people, but I also think you like to look good doing it. And I was deeply hurt. Like, am I trying to be some kind of like Instagrammer, like, hey, everybody, just
Influencer.
yeah, or just, like kind of self-congratulatory humanitarian something. So being as evolved as I am, I just kind of like let that settle for the day and circle back to it later that night. And what we figured out is that what I'm actually doing is trying to see what everyone else is doing and how they react to what I'm doing. And does that make me okay? I'm looking for that validation. So he said, no, I meant more like when you testify in front of the legislature and you get good feedback that was effective, you're really happy. He goes, there's other times where it doesn't go as well or as planned, and you get pretty upset by it. So I think that this is just part of that irrationality in my brain that's telling me I'm weird, I'm broken, I don't do anything right, I'm a failure. And when I'm able to find evidence that I'm connecting, and if that's doing good to help someone or getting feedback from a talk or something that people enjoyed being there, got something out of it, that helps stoke my essence and validate that I'm part of this belongingness. There's so many layers to it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Do something every day for, in our case, your recovery. In folks that aren't coming back from an addiction, just yourself. My my husband, my ex-husband, is doing something he read about in a book, that he does something new every day. And if that's like climb a mountain or learn a new language or attend a lecture on impressionists or something, but he makes the lists and schedules it. And he says it's been just like the last 40 days have been just the most dopamine driven, exciting time of his life, that he's just thoroughly enjoying this. So I don't know, is that something we could do for ourselves with our recovery, of check out a new online meeting, or get a massage or something for self-care? That self-care stuff counts as something towards our recovery.
Oh, absolutely. I read a
Yeah.
book, and I think I've talked about this book, about a woman who took a walk every single day. And she made it her goal for a year to take a 30-minute walk.
Yeah.
Rain, snow, ice.
Yeah.
But what was so profound about it is she did it for her own health care, but she also looked at the world differently every day, because as the light changed, she'd see the same barn, but in a different color, because of the way the light shone, or, just recognizing things in everyday life, and looking at it in a different light. And that gave her some perspective and other things, so
Yeah.
it's a great thing to do.
That thing about going for walks too is, it's a different experience going for a walk with someone where you're visiting as you walk than if you're going alone. And I find that if I pair things together, that helps increase my motivation. So if there's other podcast, I'm sorry, I see other podcasters.
Oh, all right.
Podcast.
See how things are going here.
Right. And you get, so it's hard to keep up. Like I get a little panicky when I got like 7 in my queue, and heaven forbid, like you go, oh, did you listen? And it's like, oh, I'm behind a little. Like, so those often happen either driving or cleaning house, which almost never happens, or walking, going to the gym or something. That can be podcast time. So I like combining those, where I'm both being in an environment or doing something for myself, but also doing something for my mind and my connection with the recovery world. Combine them. Vegan cooking, it doesn't have to be about recovery, just something you're into. Or
right.
Comedy, that's going to be another one. Like, let's just go to that one of doing something to laugh every day. Like if you just kind of hang around, if you're, I don't know, in your home for much of your time, it's hard to laugh. Like just hanging out on the couch isn't very funny. Maybe your pets do something funny, but that's even funnier if you have someone to share it with. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to deliberately, actively take effort and get more neurotransmitters from laughing? Do you have like a laugh plan, a laugh wellness plan?
Yeah, I'm gonna get super deep here. I TikTok.
It's so fun, isn't it?
I watch TikTok because, and I'm seriously, before, and when I was in early recovery, I didn't know much about TikTok. I wasn't really into all these things. And when I was in early recovery, I would go to YouTube and I would watch cat videos, because in those early days, I was so angry and just so like down. And I wanted to laugh. I knew like instinctively I needed to laugh. Mm-hmm. And so I went to YouTube and I would just just watch funny cat videos, and I could just laugh. And then somehow somebody sent me a TikTok, and that just started a whole nother world of like funniness. And so now and I try not to spend too much of my time. I don't have a lot of time, so I don't spend too much of my time, but when I need a laugh, I will go to TikTok.
And that's where you can dose it, and that it's pretty innocuous. You might lose a little time, but you got in control, and that's a place where you can get the dipper from the funny bucket and give yourself a little sip. And
yeah.
I think we have got to plan that. I really think everyone needs to laugh. So when I think of stuff that makes me just guffaw, and I have a weird laugh, I'm told it sounds like a harpoon steel. And I don't know, maybe like I program myself that that's where I get the best neurotransmitter dose when that laugh happens. It's a little embarrassing, but when I play this game, Cards for Humanity,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
that
Yep.
it's pretty silly. My face hurts afterwards, my chest hurts. Like there is just so much deep laughing. I live near a comedy club in Portland, Oregon, and before the pandemic, I used to go to. They had a thing where you could get like free tickets if you had a 2 item minimum. And so I would go with friends from GA like every week, and we were broke because we're like new in gambling recovery. So we'd get like a 1 item was like a root beer and 1 item was like a scoop of ice cream. And we're like, all right, 2 items. So we make a root beer float and spend $4. And that would be like, we would have a whole night of being at a comedy club. And not every single joke was funny, but it was like making the effort to put ourselves in a place where we could laugh. But I am all about, if you have like Spotify or a streaming service, put a comedy thing on, and if someone is saying stuff that tickles you, then figure out who that person is and listen to their whole show, and then buy a ticket to see them live and go be around other people that like that comedian. If there's someone in one of the groups you're in that makes you laugh, form a friendship with them and spend time with them and laugh with each other. So important. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what I have a list of comedians that I will put on like YouTube or one of their Netflix specials or
right.
something like that and just crack me up.
You know what's fun is when you're around other people that like the same ones, and then you can kind of remember some of the punchlines, and then just kind of be
Yeah.
like, joke 27, and you both are like, oh,
Yeah.
hilarious. Okay, here's another one. Build tiny habits. I know sometimes we get this thought that I'm just gonna recreate myself and never eat a bite of gluten, or I'm gonna make my bed with hospital corners every morning. We just have like these big perfectionist goals, and those are difficult to maintain. And so science says that by making tiny gradual changes, that's where we're going to get the most result and the most sustainability. And so I've heard it called tiny habits. And I mean, let's just think of one thing, like taking your medication. If people take a vitamin or some kind of antidepressant or just any kind of medication, it's probably pretty important to get that in your body at the prescribed amount of time. Some of them have a very narrow window. Like you don't want to be off by more than an hour or two. So you could set an alarm. You could keep the bottle. What's something you do every day? Brush your teeth every morning?
And I have pills that I take every night, and I have them on my side table, and I've made myself start to take vitamins every day. I was never really a vitamin person, but I noticed my hair was like falling out, and so I started making a new habit of just taking my vitamins every day.
Yeah. And you had to make a process that worked, that was set up to make it easy to do that. If you had to go drive to the store to buy a single vitamin pack every day, it might not happen every time. Make it as easy as possible, that it's right there next to your alarm clock as you put yourself in bed for the night. You also might want to start thinking, just listeners, about how to do that with some of the really important things in our life that we're trying to make changes on, and to implement those as soon as possible. So I think for many of us, we struggle with the convenience of food, and that we have trouble planning for feeding ourselves properly. And so we end up driving through and fast food and grabbing nonsense food. And so that's
guilty.
I'm not blaming. I feel it. And I, have my self-righteous prepped lunches ready to go, and little things of vegetables to keep on your desk or something. That's such a nice tiny habit to have that's really changed my life, is to fuel my human suit properly. If I'm eating nonsense, and especially for years at a time, I get like inflammation, I get depressed, it's hard to move, and then I don't exercise, and there's just so many consequences to it. So just making those tiny changes, have a walk buddy where you're just moving a little, just make it fun. There, when we get in pain from our bodies just not having what they need, let's try to fix what that is. If you're in a sedentary job where you're sitting all day and your back hurts, can you have like one of those stand-up desks or something? Can you switch jobs? Just make those changes for it. All right. I know you do. I mean, we both have to really actively work on that.
Yeah, definitely. I like at work, like when I'm at work, I have to get up and walk around the office and just move more when I'm here sitting, because I usually am at the office all day. I have a sedentary job. I'll take a walk at lunch. I'll walk around the building, or I'll come home. And then usually a lot of times I'm at my desk at home because I'm editing or recording or something like that. But I have a stand-up desk, so I'm able to stand up and move around.
Yeah. I'm just amazed how many times I hear from folks that I work with their gambling disorders that they have physical pain, a bone or a surgery or a back, or that by gambling that it kind of medicates, and studies with older adults that just a huge percentage of older adults have physical pain and develop a gambling disorder because that escape we get also takes us out of the pain. That neurotransmitter masks it. So I want to try to I want to look okay too. It feels better to move when I'm not carrying. I mean, think how much a bowling ball weighs. What's that, like 10 or 15 pounds?
I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah. So there's been times in my life where I was walking around with 10 or 15 bowling balls strapped to my body. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, how was I supposed to get by feeling like that? It was really hard on me. And so I have to actively make that one of my priorities. That said, with like physical pain and taking care of our own human suits, what about just taking care of big things in our life? And if that's other health issues, getting the proper care, the proper insurance to be able to get the proper care, the referral. People are having a lot of trouble getting in with counseling right now. A lot of people sought out counseling during the pandemic, and many counselors have full practices. So it's kind of this sad irony that at the time we need it the most to go get someone who can really help us put things in place in our minds. And we're the least equipped to be able to do that because we're suffering. And if listeners are having trouble with that, please keep at it until you get some help, and do not be ashamed to go to like family members or an EAP at work and be like, yeah, I'm just having some struggles right now, and it would be really good to have someone formal to talk to about this. Let's normalize that of dealing with those big things.
Yeah.
Another big thing can be an unhappy marriage. That's part of my story. Here's a funny thing. I was talking to my husband the other day, and we were just talking about like grief and healing and relationships, and my gambling was so bad. Boy, I just lied to that man and cheated and stole, and I mean, I was just really did not deliver on the spouse contract very well. And I desperately wanted him to forgive me when he ended our marriage over gambling. And I've tried to think, what did he expect me to be? What did he think I was capable of when he married me? And was that realistic? And is that who I am? And should I figure out ways to make myself more like that with some tweaks to make them authentically mine? And just kind of taking measure of that in the last 10 years since we got divorced. I'm like pretty close to, like, he's not mad at me anymore. He says he doesn't have any ill will towards me anymore. And he has so many reasons to. That would not have happened if we stayed married. we're better as friends. We live
Yeah.
like 10,000 miles apart. And this is what we're supposed to be now. So as painful as it was, I'm glad that we got divorced. Leaving jobs that don't work for us, that could be a big thing that people go like, oh, I need the income. I have this mortgage or these financial needs. So I'm stuck at this job that just sucks my soul all day. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry people have that. Do you hear that from folks?
Yeah, all the time. But
Yeah.
and people just feel, and I think that that plays into a lot of why people do gamble is because they're not where they want to be in life. They're not working the dream job or but they feel stuck for, whatever reason.
Yeah. And it's pretty privileged and Pollyannish to be like, well, then just go change it. I don't
Right.
think that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, for one, stop gambling with all your power and try to get happy again. But if we don't deal with these big things, there's probably reason to believe it's going to come back.
Yeah.
So please start chiseling away at what things you can control. If that's an educational part that you can just gradually take classes or switching companies or setting your boundaries, please figure out how to not create a life that you don't want to live so that you feel like you have to escape from it. Because this revolving door of addiction has been kind of exhausting for me. I mean, I've been working on some form of addiction or another for about 35 years. And I just, I just think my energies can be used in other ways,
Yeah.
like what I'm doing now to help other people that are suffering than continuing to battle those demons on my own. All right. Handle your business. And by that, I mean money issues. We get real sad when we've got the debt and the IRS and people coming after us. So we have the goal that we want to be financially in a sustainable place, but a goal without a plan is just a dream. So you got to make a plan. And I know you've mentioned that we didn't create this financial challenges overnight, and can we fix it overnight?
No, absolutely not. But we can work on it every single day.
Mm-hmm. And it's not scary to look at it every single day. Like when you make a system, it loses its power.
Yeah.
It's the shutting it out.
It
Mhm.
desensitizes you to it, so that you can I kind of talk about it being comfortable in the fear of things, like we may not necessarily know 100% how it's going to work out in the end, but working on it every day, we know we're working towards making it what we want it to be.
Totally. Yeah. And we did a whole episode on money. I mean, I think that was one of our big takeaways is that we tend to do the ostrich bit
Mm-hmm.
of like la 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 la. And even what's wild is when people go like, oh, I'm gonna go through a chapter 7 or a chapter 11, and it's like, okay, you'll get a clean slate. And then I heard someone say, but there's a bill collector trying to reach me, so I've just been ducking them. And it's like, well, no. What if you found out what they wanted and included that in your reorganization, and then
Exactly.
done, versus
Yeah.
always looking over our shoulder forever. We've got to make a plan for that. I've had to learn to live within my means, to not medicate with money or buying, that I feel happier when I have a little fudge zone in the bank of comfort, that if something were to happen with my health or my job or my bulldogs, I mean, those are expensive little gremlins to keep alive. But it's nice to have the security. Gives me more freedom to be, I don't know, a little braver. And that is my final thought of stuff I wish I had felt like I could really hear years ago, is to show up, to say yes to things, and to be courageous. And that can even be saying yes to ourselves. I mean, yesterday I had a couple hour chunk of time with some choices of things to do with it. And I just had this really interesting idea that I don't have often, which is like, what if I cleaned my house on a Saturday? Right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Right.
What would that be like? Would that feel good? Is that something I could show up for? And and be brave. So I lived in France for a while, and one way to say good luck in French is bon courage, which means, like, literally translated, means like have courage. Isn't that a wild way to say good luck? Think about it.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Like be brave, not like may the energies of the universe bless you with winning or something, but you say, like, go be brave, go have courage. And so I am trying to say that to myself, and it's within like a certain context. So, like, we don't want to be the reckless kind of risk-taking brave. Does that part of your story?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think I was a little bit, yeah, a little bit of just like it's funny you mentioned this. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. Is whenever, and I think we've talked about this too, about the pumpkin. Yeah, setting
Oh
outside
yeah,
the store.
My secret desire to steal pumpkins from
Sometimes, yeah,
stores. Yeah, thank you.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes you have those moments of like beating the system. Like I want to beat the system. Whether it's before it was just like, I don't know, if I wrote a check and I had money in my account, this is when I was gambling and I had money in my account, I would want to take the money sitting in the account, even though I know there's something against it, and go and gamble the money thinking I'm going to double it, be able to put it back in and beat the check to the bank.
Yeah.
And even though 99.6% of the time that did not work, there was just like this reckless thought of doing that. And even coming into recovery, I still kind of noticed that these reckless thoughts of like trying to just beat the system in whatever capacity it was, whatever was in front of me. I'm just like, how can I beat this? Or how can I not do what they want me to do, but still do it? Like, does that make sense?
It does. And I wonder if there's a way to channel that vibe, that kind of risk hit, to something that's a little more substance, that we're living more consistently with our values now. So if that's like you're taking a risk by putting yourself out there doing this podcast, I mean, maybe someday down the road, you're going to want to go be like CFO of a Fortune 500 company or something. I don't know if that's in your plans. Well, now your name's like all over the internet as having a gambling disorder. So you've taken a risk, haven't you? But we're doing risk in a way. I do the same thing of, I don't know. I think I target myself with my career that I'm extremely outspoken in Oregon. When I see stuff that is like nonsense laws and nonsense behaviors and things, I go like, wait, what's this now? Like, I'm going to publicly talk about shining light. And it puts me up for being publicly just noticed. And do you know who Glennon Doyle is, the author?
She don't know her off the bat.
She wrote a book called Untamed. Highly recommend. She just wrote a journal that goes with it, and she has just these really lovely kind of soundbite phrases. But one of them is something like, I don't know if these are exact words, but like, the braver I am, the luckier I get. And as people that identify with like luck being one of our things we're interested in, that just really resonated with me. The braver I am, the luckier I get. And you know what? In some ways that's true. By being brave, I have found a lot of reward from that I've made connections with people that helped me get a job I love, or adopt animals that I wouldn't have otherwise thought would make sense for my life, and have so much reward for it. So the braver I am, the luckier I get. Interestingly, there was a program she did the other day as part of the launch from her journal, where I think a woman from Pakistan called in and said, I live in a society where women speaking out against misogyny is not welcome. And I do not find, as someone who's marginalized, that the braver I am, the luckier I get. that very much creates problems for me. And it's like, that's interesting. If that might be another one of those kind of privileged statements that for some people it's like, yeah, go for it, put yourself out there 100%, know that you can deal with the consequences if things don't work out. For other people it could be really damaging. So I think in the spirit of the, like, I want to be brave as part of advice to myself and recovery, I also want to mitigate risk and have some insulation around me and make planned choices of the brave things I'm going to do, and have like a contingency plan and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a great way to have a little bit of both worlds.
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Would it be okay if I just listed my top 10 advicey things to myself so I can remember them too as we go out?
Yeah.
All right, ready? Number 1, forgive yourself. Correct your irrational, unhelpful thoughts. Figure out your essence or your values. Do something every day to help your recovery. Take care of your human suit. Build tiny habits. Make a plan to deal with your big, hairy, audacious struggles, whatever they could be. Handle your business in terms of your money. Make sure you laugh a lot, and
say the last one more time.
be brave. Bon courage.
Oh, I like it. Well, thanks again for joining us and sharing the things that you would tell yourself if you would listen. I like it. So we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye, Christina. Thank you.
Quick note that this episode is sponsored by Gamban, which we appreciate very much. So check them out at gamban.com. They offer blocking software to help keep you off the online gambling sites. And they're a wonderful company built by people with lived experience and people affected by gambling harm.